Welcome to
Dead Man
Talking. Tonight's show is an extra creepy and freakishly fiendish Halloween special. From my family, the DMT family, to yours, we'd like to wish you all a
Happy Halloween! Woo ha 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 ha!
And I hope you guys have a fantastic time. I'm sure you're all out having great parties and collecting lots of candy. Without further ado, let's get into tonight's story, entitled
There's something in the Norwegian Woods that I have proof.
There's something in Norwegian Woods and I have proof, part 1. There's something in the Norwegian Woods and I have proof, part 1.
Without further ado, let's get straight into that. As I'm writing this, I'm currently sitting in a cabin in the woods, miles away from civilization. My power is about to go out and I know it's still outside. I heard it about an hour ago. If you're reading this, it means I'm still alive. My grandfather passed at the age of 90. My grandmother died from cancer when she was young. I hope my mother has inherited more of her father's genes. She has been through rough times since she hit menopause. I guess time will tell. Perhaps my grandfather's old age wasn't so much due to genetics as it was to his habits. In the 1950s, John built a cabin in a remote part of the Norwegian woods, and did so all by himself. He lived through the war, and I suppose wanted a place that was peaceful. That's why he chose this lot. Here, in the isolated wilderness, where hope of phone reception is a recurring hope that's crushed, and where the trees tower in their domain, eternal and indifferent. It's a log cabin carved out of these very woods, overlooking a small lake with no name. One cheap solar panel was installed towards the end of his life. There's no running water, and the cold takes care of the refrigeration in the trapdoor cellar. Despite the remote location, I spent a lot of time here as a child. First, my mother, John and me. Then, when John's age finally began catching up to him, my mother and I. Now, as my mother is too growing old, the cabin has remained abandoned for nearly a decade. I remember being small, waking up to the sound of wooden whispers and the smell of bacon cooking on the gas stove. I remember Lemon Tree playing on the old FM receiver and the glow of the kerosene lamp, holding the dark at bay as we played our board games, most of which were missing pieces, so we had to use coins or matches to play. Although these memories, the good ones, will remain with me for life, there's something that remains with me in a much different manner, and that's my grandfather's stories. We had curfew, and that curfew was enacted at nightfall. You had to make sure you had peed before the sunset, before the outhouse was off limits when the night came. The first time I was there, at least at the age where any form of self-agency had developed, I asked him why we couldn't go outside. He smiled, playfully. Or else the monster's gonna getcha. I fell silent. I didn't inquire any further. As I grew older, I was allowed to go, but only alongside him, both escorting me and keeping guard as I did my business. What he was guarding me from, however, was unknown to me. It was February. John spent most of his time smoking his pipe. The smoke hung in the air as the old receiver chattered away. Rays of gold shining through the windows at dusk drifted onward. I don't remember where my mother was, but she was out somewhere, probably filling water at the pump. I've been wondering something. What's the real reason we can't go outside? He glanced at me before taking another puff of his pipe. The woods can be a dangerous place at night, wolves and such. Yes, but I had always felt that something was off with the curfew, but never had I articulated it. Not even my mum goes out at night, and there really that many wolves. A low static hum accompanied the lady on the radio. His eyes met mine, and he looked at me in a way he never had before, and really never did again. I think in that very moment he noticed that I wasn't a little boy anymore. He adjusted himself in his chair, turned the chatter down. "All right," he said, finally. "Perhaps it's now best that you know." The first night it happened, my grandfather had just awoken from a bad dream. The Norwegian woods aren't like the American ones, in which the night remains alive after the sun has set. Here, a night is not accommodating of those who fear the engines of their imaginations. There is only silence, and the only thing permitting vision is the light of the moon, if you're so lucky. He opened his eyes, and a figure was standing outside his bedroom window. It was staring at him. It remained perfectly still, illuminated only vaguely by an anemic moon. After what seemed only 20 minutes, it left. I looked at him, trying for the life of me to figure out if he was just joking or not. There was no humour in his face. Panic started settling in. I was always neuronic as a child. "Where's Mum?" I asked. "Mum will be back soon." Our vacation was cut short. The next day, I lied and told my mum that I wasn't feeling well and that we had to go home. One protest and one counter-protest later, and we were in the car, trailing back through the dirt roads. I kept my eyes fixed out the car window, scanning the depths of the forest nervously. I was always a neuronic child. In a child's mind, my first thought was something otherworldly, a monster, like my grandfather had warned me about. As I was reaching my late teens, the memory had stuck with me, but I had begun thinking about it more critically. I was going through a skeptic phase. Quite likely the thing at the window was just a person. Creepy, maybe. Dangerous, yeah, but a person nonetheless. Maybe the entire story was just a fabrication, a way to scare your grandson out of his mind. That didn't sit well with me though. He was a stoic guy, a bit of a bastard sometimes. What he did during World War II is still a highly taboo subject, but never sadistic. I found out about sleep paralysis and made a friendship with the idea. I came out here on the 27th of October. The last time anyone was here, it was my mother, and she had drived all the way home again because of the state of decay the cabin had fallen into. Rot had begun festering in its forgotten body. She wanted to come along to help out with the repairs, but I told her I'd be okay on my own. She kept insisting. It was only when I agreed to take Shepherd with me that she conceded. That wasn't the plan, because Shepherd is a German Shepherd, and Shepherd hates car rides. Finding my way to the cabin wasn't an issue, as the memory of those roads was still very vivid to me. A childhood spent here will do that to you. A moose with calves blocked the path, about 15 minutes away. I'll spare you the details. When I arrived, the decay was worse than expected. The living room floor was drooping, and a sweet yet potent smell of fungus warned of the house dying. To my small fortune, the 2 bedrooms remained intact, and the beds were unharmed. After stocking my food outside, I spent some time wandering around the lot. The outhouse was still in good condition, still in ownership of the same 1960s comic books. Exhausted from the drive, I spent my day in a folding chair on the patio, beer in hand, overlooking the lake. I spent it reminiscing over the days now long gone, a childhood of curiosity, fear, and abrasions. I was beginning to understand my grandfather more. I woke up to a sound. The sun had almost left the horizon. The shadow world was nearly here. I was certain what I heard, but in my haze it sounded like a sudden rustling of leaves coming from my right. Whatever it had been was enough to wake me. I looked to my side for Shepherd, but he was nowhere to be seen. I wanted to call on him, but something held me back. "Shepherd," I whispered. "Shepherd! Come here, boy." Nothing. I got up cautiously and walked inside. To my relief, his head shot up from the couch. He hadn't gotten any sleep from the ride up either. I locked the front door and back door and sat down next to him. In the inching darkness, I listened, dragging my hand across Shepherd's golden fur, which was turning achromatic by the second. There's something about having a dog by your side that chases away monsters, real or not, and I was suddenly grateful for my mum's insistence on bringing him along. I sat there for a while, merely listening, until I snapped out of what my childhood trauma had summoned in me. I heard a brush move, nothing more, as the last specks of light faded. I got up to flick a lamp switch, and I froze. Fuck! I'd forgotten the power generator. Leaving Shepherd to himself, I crossed the spongy floor and opened the front door. The supply shed was a few meters ahead. It was getting hard to see. I heard it again, just as my boots touched the grass, only this time it was closer. I couldn't risk not having light. With my heart in my throat, I kept moving forward. I reached down into my pocket for the keys and the metal clinking as I struggled to find the right one. First one did the job, using my hands to search for the lever along the wooden wall, and I found it and pulled. I peered back towards the cabin. Light. Something rose up through me, something primordial. It manifested itself as a voice, and the voice knew one word: run. I felt small. I felt like prey. I kept my composure. Once inside, I made sure both doors were locked and drew the curtains, crouching beneath the windows as I did. I was always a neurotic child. I guess that never changed. Sleep didn't come easy that night. My prey instincts, those mechanisms seared into my brain through a billion years of evolution, laid wide awake. All I could do was listen. An owl had the nocturnal audience to itself, its coos echoing from the bog. But then it stopped, and its sound was replaced with footsteps, slow, heavy, and bipedal. It came to a halt outside my window. I held my breath. It won't get inside. It won't get inside, I told myself. It can't get inside. I opened my eyes, and its face was in my bed. I jolted up, drenched in sweat, gasping. The room was bright. Daylight. Shepherd sat next to me, cocking his head with concern. I collapsed back down, relief coursing through me like anaesthetic. During the summers, I had spent the days by the lake, a secluded pool containing a small island. The waters laid still, asleep in their reflection of pale sky. 10 years ago, a narrow walkway lay open from the cabin, reaching down to the white rowboat, once the vessel of a young, curious explorer. Now, my feet trailed what little remained of it, a path reclaimed by time. I undressed, placing my clothes on the thwart of the rowboat. The cold felt refreshing as I swam out. "Hey, stop it, you two." We were standing in our boxer shorts, staring each other down. Mum tried to get our attention once more. "Come on, it's time to go back." "You're such a pussy," the boy said, anger glaring in his eyes, their colour same as mine. I lashed out at him, and my palm hit him flat across the chest. He winced away, a cry of pain reverberating across the waters. I felt my legs fall out from underneath me as he kicked them out, sending me crashing onto the rocks below. I don't know why I remember that so well, but I remember his face as we rowed back, twilight accentuating his features, his chest pink with the mark of my hand. I thought it was anger. Thinking about it now, I think it was disappointment, and maybe the reason I remember it is so simple. When you lose someone you love, someone like a brother, every wrong move will haunt you, until you're lost too. I swam back and tossed on a towel, tiptoeing up the overgrowth to save my feet from pine needles. My eyes returned to the sky, a day without sunlight, when a night spent in moonlight. After having dried myself, I looked at the clock. 11:30. It was time to get started. I returned from the car, toolbox and fungicide in hand. Shepherd was on my tail, sniffing. He'd never been out of the city, not like this, anyway. I sat down in one of the lawn chairs I had taken out by the front yard. Its once white colour, now weathered into ash. I watched Shepherd as he rummaged around, speeding off around the corner, only to return, only to disappear again. I wonder if he feels any different out here. I wonder if part of him understands that this is home, some remnant buried beneath 30,000 years of domestication. The trapdoor opened with a groan. I gagged and slammed it shut. A gut-wrenching stench of rot and fungi spread into the cabin, and left my mouth with a taste of reminiscent of copper. It's worse than I ever could have anticipated. I'm still not sure what to do. And going down there without a mask seems like a bad idea. But I know how much hiring someone is going to cost us, and it's not even close to tenable. I think I'll do what I can and save the cellar for last. For now, that means estimating how much wood needs to be replaced and treating the surface with fungicide. I worked until the night came. Breaks spent bashing the TV for signal. When a channel finally broke through the static, rain came and tore it away. As a consolation, the stench of decay became masked by the scent of wet earth. Horny and curious. The tranquility was short-lived, however. It was extinguished along with the sun. The lot was submerging into dusk as I walked out onto to check the electrometer again. Its hand spoke what I already knew. It was going to be a dark, dark night. Shadows crawled up and down the walls, convulsing with every strike of a match. The darkness sought refuge in corners and under furniture, all the more for each candle I lit. The stench of decay crept through the rotting floor, an odour now swollen by the vapour. I could taste it on my tongue, coated in copper. Shepherd sighed, adjusting himself on the floor. This was bad enough for a human, let alone a dog. I got up to lead him to the bedroom, my shadow flickering alongside me. As my hand touched his collar, his head snapped towards the window beside us. I stared into the black, unable to see. Then something caught his attention in the window I had just been sitting by. I sat down alongside Shepherd, his eyes still transfixed. The smell was getting worse, heavy in my throat as it slithered down into my lungs. I tried to hold back a cough and failed. And that's when I heard it. That scream. That awful fucking scream. Oscillating between torment and deranged fury. It's been 5 hours now. I think it has left. As the scream grew more distant, I recorded the sound with my phone. I don't know how to tell you what it was, and I don't know how well you can hear it. Maybe it's the candles burning up the oxygen now, but I'm also starting to feel ill. Tomorrow, I'll head to a clearing about 1 kilometre away. I'll upload all of this from there. If you're reading this, it means I'm still alive. Wow, hope you guys are enjoying this. This is part 1 of a series. Please do stay tuned for part 2. And yeah, hope you guys are enjoying it. Please do let me know down below in the comments. Of course, please do like and share. And remember guys, when you're out in a lonely cabin somewhere, remember to check the doors and windows. And above all, be safe, not sorry.